So do you need a tractor to run a homestead? This is a great question, and it's one I get often. And it's really a multifaceted question that we have to dive into. And the first question we really have to ask is, how much acreage do you have? Do you have 5 acres? Do you have 50 acres? What part of that acreage is pasture? And what part of that is wooded? What are you actually going to use the tractor for? How often are you going to use it? And ultimately, can you justify spending a large portion of money on a piece of equipment that ultimately is going to depreciate? It's going to cost money to maintain, and ultimately it's going to cost the capital to purchase the piece of equipment. We personally run a 6-acre homestead, and we don't have a tractor. We have a John Deere riding lawnmower, and we have a BCS tiller, or a BCS 2-wheel walk behind tractor. So let's take an example of if you had a 50-acre homestead. Let's say 25 acres is pasture and 25 is wooded. Now you may be like, well, I need the tractor to bush hog that pasture. Well, my proposition to you would be, if you're actually grazing that 25 acres of pasture with ruminants or with livestock, you don't need to mow it. The animals are mowing it for you and converting all of that grass to meat, which is why I love ruminants and why I love livestock. So you're not going to have to mow it with a bush hog. So then what are you going to utilize it for? Maybe you're making hay. Maybe you need it to move materials around or move large hay bales around. But there's a lot of options to be able to do those things without actually having to spend 30 plus grand on a tractor and attachments. You can borrow a tractor from a friend or neighbor. You could pay someone to come and bale the hay if that's what you're wanting to utilize it for. Maybe you're needing to move material around like mulch or gravel or things of that nature. You can always borrow it. You can always rent it. There's a lot of options out there without actually having to own the piece of equipment. Now, don't get me wrong here. I'm not saying that a tractor isn't useful. If you have 10 acres or more, I do think it would probably be pretty helpful, but I'm trying to fight back against this ideal that if you have 5 acres or if you're running a homestead that you absolutely need a tractor. You don't have to have one, but it would be really useful. On our homestead, we completely get away with not having a tractor. When I need one, I borrow it from a friend, or you can rent it for the weekend. Don't get me wrong, I'd love to absolutely have a tractor that I can go hop on at any moment to utilize for a project on our homestead, but I don't think we actually need one. Now, if I had endless amounts of cash, then for sure, I would buy a tractor. But when people ask this question, I think they're kind of justifying that they need one, when in reality, if you actually define the task that you're going to utilize it for, how often you're going to use it, I don't think you really need one. I think you can rent it for a lot cheaper, and you don't have to own it, you don't have to maintain it, and you don't have to front up all of that capital to own that piece of equipment. So if you're just starting out homesteading and you're asking this question, I would encourage you, don't get a tractor. Don't put all of that money into a piece of equipment that you may not need very often. If you found this content helpful, you'll hit that like and subscribe button. We'll catch you on the next one.